Pets Who Thrive Radio with Tammy King.
Hello, I am so glad you're here today. This is amazing. We have a phenomenal guest on today. His name is Jeff Bowers, and he is the founder and CEO of a visionary company called Totoniks. It is bringing a very unique natural product to the wellness and nutrition market. Jeff, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Hey, thanks, Tammy. And hi, America. Good afternoon.
Yes, he's actually coming to us from New Zealand. So it's very early for him right now. So first of all, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of where, just a little bit about your background, how you ended up starting Totoniks? Just give us a little history.
Sure. Maybe not a little. My history's pretty long. Yes. And we don't get any younger. But okay, so I started off, many, many years ago in the UK in the British military. Started off before that, we always had dogs, always grew up around dogs, ended up with shepherds. So always had a connection throughout my life with dogs, and then went into the military. Very, very fortunate. Got to travel around the world in lots of different situations, some in conflicts, but I won't go into those in any detail. But it was a fantastic start with the British Marines, and then on to a specialist unit. And so a really good grounding about the world and people, meeting people from every part of the world. Even sailed around the east coast of the US on HMS Intrepid, so Baltimore. So I got to know the US very early on, at a very young age. So I fell in love with the US, obviously, the diversity in the country. Ended up in New Zealand, would you believe, in 1990.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was over here training some of the troops in New Zealand and fell in love with New Zealand in 1990. Unfortunately, there was a conflict that started over in, you guys were involved in it too. So they called me back for that, and I ended up back in the UK. So I decided, yes, it was a fantastic country to live in. And I'd actually joined the New Zealand police at that point, left the military, but was recalled. So then I decided, rather than go all the way back to New Zealand, maybe I'll start in the police in the UK. And that started my journey in 1992 with working with dogs, because I got the option of going on firearms or dogs. I'd had enough of firearms at that stage. So I decided, no, dogs were the best way forward, meant I could get back to my shepherds. And so my first venture into that was a dog called Sam. Absolutely amazing dog that taught me everything, really. It was an interesting journey in the fact that the book they gave me was written, it was a British Home Office Instructor's Manual, and it was written in 1962, would you believe? This was 1992, so it was 30 years out of date when I joined. And, some of the things in it I was struggling to understand. They were saying that, the dog will know who they're going to catch, and I always asked the questions, why? And they said, the dog's nose, it's fantastic, which it's true, it was. But the way they were teaching it, I said, so do we need a scent article to put under the dog's nose? So it will, because I've been watching things on TV, I've been reading books. Back then, the internet wasn't quite up and running. And so I was, always questioning what they were doing and didn't really believe their answers. So when I finally got on the streets, and that was after 12 weeks, which wasn't that long, I began to trust my dog more than my instructors, and that paid off immensely. And that was the start of the bond for me with dogs, more than anything else. Obviously, when you're on the streets in the UK, they're working. Not a lot of people like us when we turn up. We're not often the best situations that we're going to. Certainly firearms and dogs would lead the way in the more violent situations. And so I began to trust my dog more and more and hang on. And very, very quickly, we became the top team in the UK for all the work that we were doing. I then brought on another dog, and he, with a name like Tiki, a bit of a sense of humor, but he was another amazing dog that, broke records for captures and for amount. So, an amazing team that I started off with, and we just built from there. So cadaver dogs we used. So it was a fantastic. I decided I wanted to learn more. I wanted to understand how I could improve their skills and abilities, which I knew at that point were absolutely superhuman compared to us. So I took time off and I traveled over. My brother lived in the US at that stage, North Carolina. And he headed research for GlaxoSmithKline, would you believe? Very clever guy. He went to school, I didn't. But I wrote to a guy in Alaska and asked him if I could come and join him. Being ex-military, I'd done Arctic warfare training over in Norway, so I knew I could live in those climates. So he said, yeah, come over in the winter.
Wow.
So,
that's brave.
That's right. Dr. Gordon Harben. And he studied wolves, the Tolkat family over there for over 32 years. An amazing guy. And I managed to live with him for 3 months north of Mount McKinley, which is Cole, if people know where that is. Yeah. So that was an amazing journey. And I was constantly asking him questions and saying, hey, look, how can I improve how my dogs hunt? How can I improve their skills? And he said, well, you need to watch from the masters. He said, just learn by observing. And at that time, I got everything wrong. He said, he fell about in the snow quite a few times, laughing about my thought process on alphas. And because I said, which one's the alpha? And he just went, what are you talking about? And I said, I've read this book. It says, the alpha, that must be the one in the front. And he just went, you need to watch, just watch and observe. And the more I watched, the more I learned that everything I'd read and most of the things I've been taught were completely incorrect. So there is no such thing as alpha. And the gentleman that wrote that in his first book, he was head of wolf research at the time, had to retract it because of the research that came in from the ground. So alpha was a term that humans use for leader and being in charge, and we must lead from the front, and it's the complete opposite. So there is it is a wolf family, and this changed everything that I understood really radically. It is a family. We call it a pack, and a pack is a group of carnivores. It's a term that humans have come up with. There's no such thing in nature. If there was, we wouldn't exist. So it is actually a family, and there's a mum and a dad, which makes sense, and then there's kids, yeah? So he was introducing me to all of this knowledge, and the more I understood, the more it became obvious that, what I'd been taught wasn't correct. And he said, you are witnessing the best family in the world. And I'm going, yeah. He said, they don't kill for the sake of killing. They work as a perfect team. The children and the older adults will defend the mum and dad to the death, because without them, there is no family. And It was it's just an incredible story. And so watching them go on a hunt, the mum and the dad were at the back, right? And of course, and I said, I was trying to get my head around all this new information. I said, so why are they at the back? What's the purpose of that? He said, because the rest of the family will defend them to the death. And I don't know whether you've seen, there's a book by Renee Atkinson, and they reintroduced wolves to Yellowstone National Park. And part of that, they made a documentary and how it's changed the ecology in that park by introducing the carnivores back in there, and how it's, regrown the park in so many different ways. But just cutting that short, in that video, they're showing the reintroduction of the wolves, and they lift up all of the crates together, all the doors, and every member of the family leaves those crates first, and the mum and dad stay in there for at least an hour.
Interesting.
The family come back. Yeah, the family come back, and obviously in their language they communicate that it's safe, and the mum and dad then come out and join them. It's, so all of these things, when I started to understand it, made so much sense. So he said, this family's been around 60 odd years, and it's the humans that cause the problems. And I go, yes, I was seeing plenty of that, the bad side of humans in my occupation, obviously. And he said, excuse me. So he said, if you want to improve their lives, if you want to make them hunters, true hunters like you're seeing in front of you, he said, you need to feed them the right food. And this was the light bulb moment for me. And I said, but I am, we're feeding the best. And at the time, that was Eukanuba. I honestly don't know whether it's still around. But we were paying an awful lot of money for the police dogs to get the best food as we thought at that time. And he said, again, use your eyes. And I said, well, I can't drag in a whole caribou. We don't have them in the UK for a start. I said, no, but he said, you can replicate that. He said, you could give them a natural diet. And I went, yes, I could. You're right. And he said, look, he said, just in the fact that there's no water buckets out here, and he said, and the rivers are frozen over, as you can see. He said, their kill maintains their life, and he said, and the blood is the life source of us. He said, and it's the life source for them. And everything was making sense, and it was just phenomenal for me. It changed my life personally moving forward from there. So obviously when I couldn't wait to get back to the UK and put this into practice. And so, of course, I had no clue what I was doing. It was literally guesswork, and I was going, oh, will this work? Won't it?
And excited and enthusiastic, though.
Oh, absolutely. Very much so. So I thought, how can I replicate nature? Nature gets it right, in my view. That's my saying. Humans break it, So I wanted to produce something that my dogs could eat. So I went to the butchers, obviously, and brought all these foods together. Bit of heart, bit of liver, bit of kidney, mixed it all up and put it in front of them. And they just devoured it, right? To see them eat biscuits, and then walk back and walk away and then go and get a drink and have some. To see them devour, and it didn't touch the sides, and I'm looking at it going, okay, all right,
yeah,
I'm onto something, right? So then I went back to the library and got more books and started studying, and there was a couple of guys that were really influential in the way I produced my first diet for dogs, and that was Ian Billinghurst and Tom Lonsdale. So both vets, both moved down to Australia in the 60s, both really clever people, obviously vets, studied in London and ended up in Australia and met lots of people that fed raw food to dogs down there. And it was farmers and what have you. So completely different. UK was slightly difficult. You couldn't be throwing raw fish around, but certainly over in Australia, it was the done thing. So these guys quickly realized that they weren't seeing the same illnesses that they were seeing in the UK from dogs. Bladder infections and torsion, stomach torsion, all the things that you get from eating the wrong food, they weren't seeing. And then they looked more and more into it and came up, and they'd written books on how to feed raw and the reasons for feeding raw and everything else. And unfortunately, they both met one another at a veterinary meeting this particular year, and they both were extremely outspoken, saying, look, these are the changes we've seen. They've been documenting it. And unfortunately, they were so outspoken, they were both struck off from practicing as vets.
Oh, gosh. Wow.
Yeah. So pretty horrific considering, what they were saying. They were backing it up with evidence of, obviously, that they'd seen in their practices and things. So Professor Tom Lonsdale now is a professor, and he's been fighting for, real food for dogs since, the 60s. And so, I bow down to that guy. I've read all his books. He's, one pretty amazing person. So when so I was back to policing in the UK, and obviously within 3 days of feeding my dogs raw, I had changed their lives. And I couldn't understand why. All I knew was, now I'm struggling to run behind them. I was pretty fit back then. I could keep up with them, but I was doing something like 15 miles tracking people. And this is through cities, through towns, through, and the dogs would get them. And it was just like, I turned a switch on, and I thought, okay, so Glenn was talking about making them an athlete. Obviously meat, protein, grows every living cell. If you do that, then, and that certainly they lost weight. But they built muscle, so they were dragging me down the street. So that was, it was getting harder and I'm thinking, but the success went through the roof, over 80% success. So there was an 80% chance if I turned up, I was going to catch you. If you run off from a car, didn't matter. I'd put the dog's nose on the seat and he would pick up the driver. It was just, and we'd run into extremely busy. Back then there were discos, 5,000 people. Imagine in Manchester and places. Wow. And he would pick them out at the bar, you know.
That's amazing. Dogs are so amazing. Yeah.
Oh, I can speak for hours on where we are now, understanding them. But this was back before we fully did. So I was like, I knew I was onto a winner, transferred all the dogs onto it, and yeah, changed their lives, really. They stopped drinking gallons. They didn't need to because the moisture was in the food. I made sure I poured the blood back in. You know, it was just incredible. We were policing the Commonwealth Games in Manchester, and there was a stand there from New Zealand, the New Zealand police, and they were advertising for New Zealand police officers. Yes, obviously, let me think about this for a minute, you know. To New Zealand, and I was like, yes, please. But 5,000 of us applied for that.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
But 80 places, so yeah, a bit of a fight. But because I'd been over there before, because they knew what I'd done with the dogs in the UK, so they said, look, we'd love to have you on. So sprinted back to New Zealand on a bit of a falsehood, really, and I still feel bad about doing that. But really, I'd done my research on New Zealand and realized, you know, that New Zealand can supply 20 times the amount of food for its population. It's one of the few countries in the world that can sustain itself food-wise. And that's because the population is so low and the country is so large. And I knew their farming practices, you know, they don't use antibiotics. Because free range and everything, yeah, it lives in nature. So
right, stuff that we should all be eating, and yeah.
You've got it. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. It is, yeah, paradise for humans, let alone dogs. So I came over here with that thought process that I wanted to, develop something. And because I'd lost dogs on the streets in the UK, you know, they defended me, and I vowed I would pay them back. Without hesitation, they defend you. And I think that's something people need to understand, that every dog on the planet that we own would, without hesitation, defend you to the death. And I thought I'd trained that. I thought that's something that I taught them to do. You know, they'd go and attack. How wrong was I? As always, our belief is not often the way it really is. I mean, it's nice to believe that, and it's true, that's what they will do. But it's not for that reason, would you believe? So if we look back to the wolf and the family, why would they defend their family to that extent? Why would they lose their life for their family? And for the mum and dad especially, because who provides the food? Who provides the food that keeps them alive every day? That's you, Tammy. All right?
That's all right.
That's me. Okay? They know without you turning up with the food, because they don't go out hunting. Well, they do go out hunting with you. Every time you open your front door there, they hunt, right? You call it a walk. Your dog's never walked a day in its life. It goes out from the den and it hunts. That's why the nose hits the ground and you get pulled down from the street, yeah?
Yes.
And so it's, it all makes sense when you understand it from their perspective. But fundamentally, and America's great for rewarding service and things. And certainly dogs in the US get medals on a regular basis for defending their owners to the death. And I can give examples. One was a Labrador. This was in Carolinas. And people were coming in to burgle a house. They'd done 3 burglaries before, armed burglaries on houses down the street over the weeks. And this particular day, the guy was out washing his car, and he got his pet Labrador lying next to him as he's washing the car. These guys start to turn up. His Labrador goes straight in to attack them, right? And he said, I was just stood there washing the car. They shoot, and they shoot the dog. Unfortunately, the dog survives. Great.
Oh, gosh. Oh.
Yeah, but the dog holds on. He gets into the garage, closes the garage, calls the police. They get arrested. Dog gets a medal, obviously. But that's just that dog wasn't trained to do that.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it was just instinct. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and it is. And so from research that we now understand, they can taste how humans feel. It's not about smell, would you believe? They can taste pheromones, hormones. They know if you're angry. They know if you're sad. They know how you're feeling. The research that's come out from Professor Burns in North Carolina, he's been studying the intelligence of dogs now for over 12 years. well, 14 years now, is remarkable. It has changed the way that we work with them, that we communicate. That, yes, there's so much to tell you all, but I digress. But from a perspective of food, it is so important that we are in their lives. Obviously, we provide life, and they know that. So that defense mechanism is instinctive. They will only do it in extreme circumstances, though. They can sense that the danger is that high. And it was the same for the police dogs. And I understand that now, retrospectively. We thought we'd train them to be that way. But why could I take them home, and I could take them into a school and demonstrate with children, and these dogs would lie there on their backs, going, hey,
sure,
think about cooking, and then 2 minutes later, I'd be demonstrating them biting me on the sleeve, But yes, and again, looking back, that bite was never the same as in reality.
Mm-hmm.
You could not recreate that sense of adrenaline ever in training. So all of these things started to line up. So when I came to New Zealand, my sole goal was to make a diet for dogs, one fit for dogs, one the best diet on the planet. And I was very fortunate that I was able to do that. I found like-minded folk, Bruce and Judy Mayhew, who owned a business making human food, right? And I knew they loved dogs, and they were breeding and things like that. And I got to speak to them and said, "Hey guys, look, I may sound crazy, but I've got this idea, and this is what I want to do." And they were like, "Whoa, sounds amazing. Let's give it a go." And sure enough, we founded Canine Natural, the raw dog food company. Everybody knows now. Because I made raw food available to dogs in any climate. I started the freeze-drying revolution, basically, or that innovation. And that was thanks to the innovation that goes on in New Zealand. Living down here on the edge of the world, you have to come up with some pretty good ideas to get food around the planet without it going off. And a company had done that. They'd taken freeze-drying to the next level. And freeze-drying was developed for the space program. But it's still, in most cases, it goes in on trays and takes a long time, a lot of handling to get that product made. Whereas in New Zealand, they came up with a way of freeze-drying on a shelf system under a vacuum constantly. It goes in the top and comes out the bottom, and it lessens the cost drastically, which meant I could freeze-dry Canine Natural and obviously bring it to the US and make it shelf stable. So
an amazing food, by the way. One that I've fed my dogs. The more, I don't know, it just has a different texture, smell, everything, but it is so fresh. So yeah, kudos to you for that.
Thank you. Yes, it was a really interesting journey from I'd never run a business. I had no clue. I just had the passion to make sure that I could pay dogs back. And that's when I realized, and certainly when we entered the US, that I couldn't pay them all back. And that was a showstopper for me. I knew I could get to a lot of dogs, but I couldn't get to them all. And I'm thinking, why? And obviously when I did the maths, for example, the dogs in the US, we have 22 million sheep in New Zealand, right? Running around in the hills. I know, way more than the people here.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I know. And when I did the maths, I went, okay, that will feed America's dogs for 1 month. And then we have no sheep. And I'm like, these numbers don't stack up. As in, I'm not going to achieve my aim. I moved on from Canine Natural, and I needed to get outside the square. I knew I could help welfare of dogs other ways. And so I set up training centers here and daycares, and then the first kennel at an airport, so that we had business class, premium economy kennels, and that, it is the ultimate place if you're going to put a dog. Yeah,
in New Zealand?
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So these kennels, they have TVs in there with dog programs that dogs can see because they see different colors. Their owners can beam in, talk to the dogs. They can see them on cameras 24/7. They have double beds. We pull the pillow back at night, and they have a nice fresh treat on their pillow. Yeah, it's mood lighting. Those kennels are just state of the art. And I wanted to show people that dogs deserve that. They thrive in those environments, all soundproof, fully heated. Yeah, just amazing place. And so I focused on that, and then I could only be me. COVID turned up.
Oh, yes. Hello.
Yeah. So I built this state-of-the-art kennels at the airport, absolutely chocker full. And 2.5 years, the planes don't fly, do they?
Right.
So I had to digress from that venture. Yeah, the banks wanted to back me all the way, but I'm saying, look, guys, if you can tell me when the planes will start flying, that's great, Otherwise, no. I will do something else. So I concentrated more on the training. So I started to train assistance dogs but not the normal assistance dogs. So these dogs would be owners, their own dogs that I could teach to detect heart murmurs, to detect low oxygen levels, diabetes, epilepsy, to do CPR. And your dog can do this.
So they would do it on the human? Is that what you were teaching?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's great.
But they do this anyway. Your dog will know if you've got a heart murmur. Your dog will know if you're diabetic. Your dog will know 20 minutes before you would go into a coma. You just haven't asked them to tell you. Every dog is capable of this. And I learned this from Professor Burns and his research. That's phenomenal. Every dog on this planet has superhuman capabilities. And if I just go into that a little bit before I go on to the Totoniks, sorry, tell me if we're running out of time.
No, it's great. This is great.
I've got so much information. But so the way it works is this. We knew their noses were amazing. I'd proved that, how can you track people through, thousands of different people and they can one scent. What we didn't know was the accuracy of that nose, and Professor Burns proved it. So we've taken it down to 2 cells of a virus inside a human body, and your dog can detect it.
Wow.
2 cells of a virus. That is a trillionth of a particle. Okay? There is no machine on the planet that can get to that level. However, and this is the quandary. So we started off because I've worked with dogs to detect cancer, and absolutely they can. It is not difficult for them at all. What is the issue though? A dog can have a bad day, all right? A dog can say, I focused on something else for a minute and miss it, right? Machines don't. If the machine's broken, it's not working. So it was always, certainly when we looked at it in the UK, it was always an ethics issue, the fact that what happens if the dog misses it, So from a perspective like that, you can't rely on it 100%, but you can't on anything for obvious reasons. But sure. it's that boundary. So when I'm talking about this stuff, it's still the dog needs to do it kind of thing. So when we looked at the accuracy, we realized, I realized the phenomenal ability that the dog had. Now, when they were doing the CT scans on these dogs and they were awake in CT scanners, and I've done this for children's hospitals, and because there's some pretty horrific cancers that kids get where they need head scans and they need masks put on, like plastic masks. So I train my dogs to do all of that and go in the scanners and get the mask. And of course, when the kids see that, they don't need sedating. They'll just go in and do it themselves.
Sure.
Right? But yeah, so from that perspective, I knew when Professor Burns did the scans on the dogs when they're awake, we realized there's a gland in the roof of the mouth, and it's been called the veronal nasal gland forever, right? It's completely wrong. It goes nowhere near the olfactory system. It goes directly to the center of the brain. And that's how they process hormones, pheromones there. It's why dogs always come up to you when they meet you and often put their head in between your legs, and you're like, whoa, peg it in. All right. What they're doing, they are literally testing how you feel. So we can lie with body language. Body language is their communication. It's our communication, right? Theirs is 90% body language. So when I'm teaching dogs, I use actions to explain the word. And if you use the actions and the dog follows your action, it'll understand the word that you're going to put at the end of it. All right? It's really simple stuff to teach now. But they do that because they look at your body language and go, okay, you look friendly, you're giving me the right signals, And now I'll just prove it. And an easy way to explain this is if you ever see dogs greeting one another in a park, right? Or anywhere, they will start to circle, yeah? Checking the body language of that dog isn't lying, because they will lie, all right? It's a survival instinct. I'm tough, I'm big, I can do this. Woo! But inside,
Scared, okay. Yeah.
Yes. So when they're doing that, you will never know if they're going to fight. But if they're going to fight, it'll be instant. There'll be no warning, and they will fight instantly. Okay? The reason for that fight is because one of those dogs was lying.
Interesting.
It was saying, I'm scared. Now then, anything in fear in nature is likely to attack. All right? Best form of defense, they understand all of this is attack. So people say dogs are aggressive. Seriously, I can tell you now, I have never met an aggressive dog. I will never meet an aggressive dog. They do not exist. So why would a dog attack me? Why would a dog attack me if that's the case? Because it's frightened.
Yes.
Because in a position whereby it believes it's no escape, it has no other option. The only option it has left is to fight. That is the only reason a dog will bite you. Gordon summed it up beautifully to me. He said, Jeff, because I was looking at these wolves, I had no guns and neither did he. And I'm going, seriously, we're out here? All right. What's going to stop him crawling into the tent and taking me off, right?
Right.
Again, and he just fell about laughing. And he said, don't be daft. They're terrified of you. I said, that's good. Feelings mutual. And he said, no, seriously, they will never touch you. And I'm like, he said, you corner them, you run up to them and try and grab hold of them. That'd be a different story.
Sure, yeah.
He said, but they are terrified of us. He said, we've hunted them for hundreds of years. He said, they are absolutely terrified. And he said, but that's what keeps them alive. And that made so much sense when we discovered, how they could assess you, how they can read you. And every human face that they see, they look to the right-hand side or emotional side. That's dogs. No other species. We've tested monkeys. No other species does that. They read you so many different ways. And obviously with these abilities that they've got that we didn't understand. We did, but we didn't understand. They are absolute masters of what they do. So I can stand here and say, I've never met an aggressive dog, and it's true. I can prove it now. A dog will bite in fear. It will bite because it's scared. It will, and looking back at my working dogs, I thought they were really brave. I now understand. I put them in situations whereby they were terrified, and rightly so. And often situations that I wouldn't read. I could be stood there, and then all of a sudden my dog would erupt next to me, and I'm like, I learned to understand that meant they were seeing something that I wasn't.
Sure.
In one particular case, it was backed up by video evidence because the guy said, I'd done nothing. He was blaming my dog had attacked him for no reason, albeit I found a firearm on him. But he said, you preempted it. You and the dog preempted the attack. I hadn't, moved from the spot. I hadn't said anything to you. So fortunately, he was out in the open. It was on a video camera back then. And he literally just dropped his head.
Really? Wow.
And when I watched that video, that was enough. He was instinctively, if we're going to fight, we will drop our head. It's an instinctive move to protect our neck. And that was enough evidence for me to say, my dog had seen it. I backed my dog up. So we both took you out. Yeah, I mean, shouldn't have been carrying a firearm either. But it stopped him getting compensation of me from an unlawful arrest. But it just shows you how in tune the dogs are.
Absolutely. That's incredible.
Yeah. So, going back to doing that training and obviously learning, how to communicate for the first time ever with dogs at 100% of their language, which I never dreamt we would be able to do. It meant I could show people how to do that, right? I could teach people how to communicate so that they could ask their dogs to do these things when they needed them to do them. And that was a fantastic thing for me. I trained, there's an article that made the news over here, dogs to detect Chilean needlegrass. So that's a grass that grows. It's an invasive species in New Zealand. It's horrific grass. It drills itself into animals. It's nature is worst. It was designed to do it into the ground, but obviously we put animals in there, so it hooks into their fur and drills in. And so we're trying to eradicate it, and we're paying for people to walk them down fields here, a lot of money, because it takes huge amount of understanding of plants. So you've got to be a botanist to differentiate grass from grass, right?
Yeah.
To me. So they approached me and said, "Oh, do you think you can do this?" And I said, No, I can. I said, "But, well, I can't." I said, "A dog can." They just looked at me like, "Okay, so how much funding do you want?" I said, "It'll take the dog one go." I said, "It'll take me about 4 weeks to train the human." They looked at me like, "Seriously?" I mean, these guys couldn't believe it, right? So they brought me this grass. Obviously, it couldn't sprout. And they said, "How are you going to do it?" And so I showed them, and I gave it to my dog. She put her nose into it, and then I just ran in the building and hid it. And I put it in a kitchen where there's lots of different smells. And I told her, I said, "Fine, find the grass." And off she goes into the kitchen, bang, sits next to it. And they're like, "What? Oh, that's because you touched it." And here come all the excuses. Right. And I go, "Great." So I said, "Well, you're the botanist, you're the experts." I said, you cut some off for me, 3 strands. I said, "And go and put it in that 2-hectare field over there." And they're like, "Seriously?" I said, "Go and put it out there. Don't tell me where it is." I said, "I don't need to know. My dog can't understand." So I said, just do it. So, yeah, long story short, within 10 minutes, he was lying down next to it. And they were like, so yeah, that is how fast a dog can learn. I train dogs to find money, to do anything, right? It takes the dog one go. Seriously, you can introduce some money to the dog once, and they will find it from then on in. It is the human
exactly
that takes time to understand how to make your dog search properly and do those things, because so they are way ahead of us as a species. Anyway, so coming back to
love that story. That's amazing. Yep.
Yeah. So that's where I ended up, and then I get a knock on my door from Shane. So Shane's still working at Canine Natural, and he says to me, "Jeff, you've got to come back in the industry." And I said, "Why? Why have I got to come back in the industry?" I said, "I'm disappointed with myself. I've let my dogs down. I couldn't get out there." And he said, "No." He said, "You've got to come up with something new." And I said, "Why?" "Okay. Yeah." He said, "There's nothing new. Seriously, Jeff, there's nothing new in the industry." And there hasn't been. 15 years. I said, "Well, there must have been." He said, "No, you need to come across." So this year just gone. So 2024, I got on the plane and I went to Super Zoo. And I had a walk around. Me and Shane were walking around the place for 3 days. And it backed up what he was saying. I couldn't find anything in there that I would want to better or give my dogs.
That was unique.
So I said, okay. I came back home and I just sat down and I thought, you know what? It's got to be based around nature. It's got to be the best of the best this time. I can't do anything less, or else I'm not going to come up with anything. And then I thought about it and I thought, okay, what's the best thing I put into Canine Natural? And that was the blood. It is the elixir of life. It provides every vitamin, mineral, nutrient. It is the best food on the planet. So I started to look. Unfortunately, we've got the internet now and it's a bit better than it used to be. And so I started to get the research papers on blood. And the ones that dropped into my inbox were pretty outstanding. There was a couple of reports that really knocked me for six, and they were on what will happen to the planet if we don't start upcycling blood and using it. And there's two pretty drastic reports out there that explain that, there's billions of gallons of blood around the planet being poured untreated into the waterways, and the effect that that's having, even in my old city in Manchester where I was born, relies on Lake Windermere, a lake, in the Lake District, that's the water supply for Manchester turned green 2 years ago because of algae, and that's down to the protein wash off. Mm-hmm. Okay. So protein's a fantastic tool. It grows every living cell, but it's not meant to be washed down the drains for obvious reasons. Anything in nature would drink that, including humans. When we go back to the old man, it was we would go hunting and use eggshells to collect the blood, and that's what we drank. right? So it's, yeah, but it does, yeah, there is blood and there's blood, obviously, but venison blood, the more research you got on venison blood, makes sense. I mean, Chinese medicine's known anything to do with venison has healing properties. They've been using it for over 3,000 years. But what we didn't understand was the blood is the transport system for those healing properties. And that's something called, it's a peptide called IGF-1. Now, humans discovered this probably 10 years ago now, that IGF-1 was pretty impressive. And of course, we produced something synthetic, didn't we? And athletes started taking it as a spray, and of course, yeah, it increased performance, and bang, it's banned. However, its bioavailability is still there in blood, certainly venison blood. In fact, we grow up with it as well. It helps us grow as kids and babies, and then we start producing it in the quantities that we need. So yeah, we start to die. But yeah, they realized back in the emperor's eras in China that drinking blood gave you great health. And yeah, emperors lived up until 95. This is back when most people wouldn't make it past 40.
Of course, yeah, that's crazy, yeah.
Absolutely. You know, it has amazing properties and backed up by science now. So that's my other theory. Science only proves what nature already understands, right? We play catch up. So I looked at all this and went, bingo. What is one of the biggest issues out there for dogs at the moment? And that is dehydration. Yeah. And I know people have come up with doggy drinks and doggy raid, and I know there's lots of attempts to solve that issue. But for me, yeah, if you're going to give them anything to drink, then the ultimate is blood. It clearly is. And venison blood takes that to a whole new level. From New Zealand, so again, we are extremely fortunate living here. We have the largest herds in the world, over 1.2 million deer, free range, living the dream. And yeah, and more than that are wild. But because
not given antibiotics, hormones, vaccinations, none of that.
Not allowed in New Zealand, not allowed. All right. So we have a route to market that is, second to none in the fact that we have the supplies. Yeah. And my aim is both get this product to every dog, you know, and more so the dogs that are fed kibble now. So one of the studies that I did with Canine Natural was around why was the diet so good in comparison to other diets. And I sent it to Massey University, and a guy called Nick Cave, who's head of research there, did a study for me, and he ran a group of hounds, or separated them out, fed Canine Natural to the one group of hounds and kibble to the others, and he did a study on the differences. And I've got that study to this day, and it was groundbreaking. The biggest reason my police dogs improved was because of the olfactory system. The olfactory system needs a huge amount of water. Bloodhound, constant drooling, right? They need huge amounts of fluid. And if there's any lack of fluid, it impacts hugely on the olfactory system. So yeah, that was the biggest uptake. Obviously, protein grows muscle, so my dogs became athletes, but it improved their sense of smell by 80%.
Wow, that's crazy.
So
yeah.
Study, he took that around to the police in New Zealand and customs and everybody else, right, and said, look, you know, if you want to improve the ability of your working dogs, then this is what you've got to feed, right? Yeah, groundbreaking study. But dogs, yeah, humans suffer from dehydration too. We drink way too much water, would you believe? Water flushes out the minerals and vitamins. It doesn't add them. Yeah, so people open up to that now. We have like diurite solutions and things, you know, so we are becoming aware, but dogs don't have those, right? So not only have they got a drink that DNA wired to devour, okay, in other words, palatability through the roof, but they're also getting the vitamins and minerals and the protein from it. It's over 60% protein in every sachet, right? And protein's the most expensive food on the planet now. So some of these studies that I read were saying we need to use this for humans. We've got to put this back into the food chain. It's the best food and we're wasting it, right? They tried, and it's been a big fail because iron. So humans can taste the iron, and they're like, whoa.
Exactly. Yep.
And yet, from a female's perspective, I know so many. I've got 3 daughters, and I've got 5 granddaughters now, and iron is a big issue. It's a deficiency. They're now on blood tablets, and they're like, whee! None of the artificial ones that you get. But so from a human perspective, we could use this stuff, but from a dog perspective, and so the first trial of it, so I got deer blood powder made, and I knew I'd come up with different varieties because that's a long story again, but I've rescued 5 griffins. Don't ask. I've gone from big dogs to small.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And the reason for that, I wanted to prove that my small dogs were just a small wolf, right? Doesn't matter the size, they've still got the same abilities. And these guys can detect money, they can, oxygen levels, they can do everything that my big dogs could do. It's just phenomenal. But they came with a heap of health issues, and I'm like, oh. So I've developed these blood drinks around them, really. So the hip and joint, the gut health, the performance, because we did a 15K, which is a 10-mile hill climb with them, mountains here, with these 5 guys, and one of them was diagnosed with literally can sublimate his hips. They just come out. He doesn't have sockets.
Oh, wow.
So they were saying, that he's going to need an operation, and I stopped x-raying dogs' hips in the police because every one of them had an issue.
Oh, sure.
So I learned you build muscle around them, it supports the joint, so my dogs worked till 16, 17. These are police dogs.
Wow.
You're on the right food, right? But so I've done the same with the griffin. So he had 12 centimeter circumference around his back legs because he'd been in a crate. And so with the help of physio and the blood, 3 weeks, 24 centimeters around his joints.
Wow.
So he runs like a rabbit. He's he's the fastest one of the group now.
I love that. So do you go, when you went on that 15K, are you going with all 5?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes.
Yeah, I can send you videos. We got,
please.
We do some crazy stuff with them. And Elliot's the older one. He does parkour, right? He climbs walls. We trained him to do, and he's this big, right? 5 kilo. Yeah. It was a bad move, really, because benches mean nothing to him now. He just leaps on them if he wants to.
Sure.
But it's but the drinks have been the reason. Seriously, I swear that they have done all of this. And when you look at IGF-1 and what it does, it makes sense. Okay, it regrows cells, it repairs cells, helps joints, and so it is phenomenal stuff. And this stuff's available, in nature by billions of gallons. We are throwing it down the drain, which is not anymore. My aim is to stop that. My aim is to help save the planet, obviously, because I've got granddaughters that are growing up in it. But my aim is to make sure that every dog has this in its bowl and gets the benefits from it. And that is what it is. And the other thing, I use my brother's knowledge here from a bio perspective. And I said, why are people seeing the results so quickly with this product, right? So, for example, a dog couldn't jump into the car. It's 9 years old, struggling with its back hips. 24 hours later on Totoniks hip and joint, it's leaping back in the car. And that owner was in tears to me on the phone saying, I don't know what you've done, but whatever it is, keep doing it.
Wow.
And I said, look, so I phoned my brother and said, hey, why are people seeing results so quickly? Because, normally it takes 2 or 3 weeks. And he said, well, for a start, it's liquid. Yeah, okay. He said, well, liquid absorbs through the mouth. Bioavailability goes through the roof. He said, for example, and he puts it into English so I can understand it, because he's way above my level, that if you had a heart attack now, Jeff, I'd put an aspirin under your tongue. You'd absorb it.
That's right.
So I'm going, whoa, that makes sense. So liquid. Trouble was, I didn't want to be doing what every other company does, and that's send water around the globe in a bottle, right? That's not me. It's not who I am. I want it to be shelf stable, so it's not going to cost people to have it in the fridge or constantly under ice. So my brother gave me that idea. So you get a GL45 Pyrex bottle,
which is amazing. I love it. I use it every day for my dogs. Yes,
nice and tough. It goes in a dishwasher. You know, you can keep it for life, which is fantastic. It's glass, so if you do want to recycle it, you can. And the top's recyclable. It's plastic. Our soft plastic sachets, we made them soft plastic, not foil. So again, you can recycle. The cardboard and everything is recyclable, and it reduces weight. So shipping and stuff, it's so much easier. And yeah, my whole purpose of this has always been to pay back the dogs that saved my life, and I will continue to strive to do that. I've finally come up with something that I can get to every dog, so it doesn't matter what they're eating, and whether it's raw or whether it's kibble, this should be going on their food. Mine are all raw food I've taken for, and the first thing they do is drink the liquid, and then they eat the food. You know,
of course. So even on the dog that has the hip issues, you're already feeding him raw, so he's already getting the best food. But then you added that on top, and then that's when things really started to change.
Absolutely kick in. Yeah, absolutely kick in. The physio was, well, she sells it now. She was just blown away. She was just like,
I bet.
She said she was expecting 6 months of work from him. She got 3 weeks. So she probably shouldn't be selling it. But there you go.
Yeah, exactly. She's going to not have as many clients. Yeah.
That's right.
Wow. Well, that is an amazing story. I mean, you've really, goodness, you've been through so much and can bring so much to this brand just from your experience, and also seeing not only the behaviors, but how they're responding to this amazing product. And I want to share one of the things that I've seen in my own dogs. For one, they love it. Yes, they absolutely love it. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then the other thing is we rescued a little dog who came to us with all sorts of gut issues, who was on a really poor diet its entire life. And so we were trying to get her on a fresh diet. Well, she couldn't take it. Her little body couldn't take it. So she was vomiting over and over and over and over. So by adding that on there, like, we were already getting way better with her vomiting. Yes. But that has really been the kicker for her. It's helping her gut, which is so encouraging.
It is. It seriously is. It is nature. At the end of the day, nature understands this stuff. And I think, we try and understand nature, and I don't think we ever will. But for me, I know what, with Canine, I knew when I produced it, it could never do any harm. And it's the same for this. I know it will never harm any dog that takes it, right? It's a novel protein. It's just packed with natural healing products. IGF is one, but when we put the greenlet muscle in and the bone broth, they're anti-inflammatories. Everything that's in there is omega-3, not an omega-6, so it's not going to cause inflammation. And we're seeing it. It's just so cool. I
bet it is. For being the creator, it's got to be very exciting and rewarding for you.
I'd like to say I was the creator. I'm not. I'm the enabler that is hopefully allowing it to come to people. The creator was way better than me. I mean, nature created this.
Well, sure. Yeah. You're just making it available. Well, and it's easy. Like you said, it comes in little sachets in a little cardboard box. And all you have to do, what I do is I start with a little bit of warm water in the bottle, and then I add the sachet, and then I fill the bottle the rest of the way with it, and then I shake it up, and it's perfect. And then whatever I have left, I'll stick in the fridge. But usually I don't have a lot left because I have a house full of dogs.
Yes, likewise. We have one bottle that goes. Go.
Exactly, one meal is all it takes. But for the average person that has maybe one or two dogs, it can last a little longer for sure.
Yes. Yeah, but it is.
But if people wanted to learn more about this product, your brand, how can they find you?
Okay, Totoniks.com. So that's Toto. So Toto is Maori for blood, would you believe?
That's awesome.
And tonics speak for themselves. We had to spell tonics with a K because from a trademark perspective, it can't be descriptive, would you believe? So, yeah, Totoniks.com, and you will see all the information now. We're just updating our website. So when you're in America, you'll be able to see the stores that are going to be stocking it. And yeah, so it'll be exclusive for those guys, just for you in America. So it won't bore you with the New Zealand ones because you can't buy it from us. But yeah, so we've geolocated it so that you guys are going to know exactly where in the US that this product's available. But we are so excited to have it in Barking. I mean, it was fantastic to meet you at the show, and your
Absolutely.
passion
Yes.
goes through. It's just unreal. We are so excited.
Yes, we're very excited. And to see the difference it's made in our own dogs, it's going to be a hit. But yeah, this is an amazing product. If people want to find out about it, definitely go to Totoniks.com. The other thing I wanted to mention is something that you mentioned to me whenever we met is about this free training that people can get. So if you could talk about that for just a second.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of my passion is obviously welfare too. And I want people to understand now how much I understand about teaching. And so teaching a dog now has become so simple if you understand how, like everything, and it will blow you away. So I'm giving you free training. If you purchase any of our products over $35, and that's most of them, apart from the sample sachet, if you purchase that, you get access to 3 courses worth $500 for free. And I want you to do those courses because you will fully understand how to communicate with your dog. And one of the courses will take you on that journey of assistance work. So your dog will indicate whatever you wish them to indicate. You will be absolutely blown away. But that is my thank you to you for looking after your dog from a food and drink perspective. But more importantly, I want you to also understand how to communicate with them, and it will change their lives and yours. You will no longer need to shout. They will understand what you're asking, and they will do what you ask. You will be blown away just as much as with Totoniks. So,
well, I'm excited about that too. So that's very exciting. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Jeff, this has been such a pleasure. I knew it was going to be awesome, but I had no idea I was going to be blown away. So your life story is amazing. And I'm so glad I had the chance to have you on the show today. So thank you, really.
No, thank you, Tammy. And thanks, guys, for your support. And without people like you, Tammy, we would not be able to get this on the market. So, yeah.
Sure.
Thanks, God.
Absolutely.